Hello there, my name is Ismas. Welcome to another Blender tutorial. So let me reduce this music. So if you are here and watching, let me know if everything is okay, the music is there, and you can hear me. And don't forget to say hi or like the stream. And yeah, so last night we made these models in the practice tutorial, but I didn't explain the rigging part, how I did that. So in this video I'm going to try and explain how to make a basic car rig in Blender. You can see when you move this in the y-axis, you can see we have that the tires are spin like so, and we can rotate the direction, so the front tires, something like that. So you can animate that. So let's try out and work on this rig. And you can see, so this rig is set up to work on any model, any car model. So you can just get that mesh there and apply it on a different model, and you can create, and you can also make it have the same rig and control it in the same way. Let me see, why is this not rotating? Okay, it should be rotating. So let's try and duplicate this rig that we have. So what I'm going to do is let me get this car, duplicate it with Shift D. Before I do that, let me make sure that I have a screencast turned on. I always forget to add it as my default, as a default setting, but let's screen keys, and let's do that. Let's put on some music. Yeah, so let's duplicate this so that we start from scratch. We're not going to model the entire car. We are just going to model we are going to just rig it so that we can easily animate it. So I'll duplicate this and move it to a different, you know what, let's see, what should we do? Let's just move it to a different layer. It still has the rig, so we can delete the rig, and we also need to delete these bones. You can see we have that. Everything is a separate object. Only this is parented to the main body. The tires are all placed randomly, so we can just move them back. And so this is what we have. So because we want to create a template, let's create a template, a basic shape of the car that we can use, that we can parent everything on. That way, when we are trying to use a template on another car, we just use that mesh we have created. So let's get a cube, go to edit mode, maybe add a loop there, and a loop there. So basically what you want to have is some kind of shape to see where the front is and where the back side is, something like that. So this is going to be our template, and we can come in here in the object properties and turn on, instead of texture, we can turn the draw type to wire, so that we only see the wireframe. And now we need to create some armatures or bones that are going to be used to control these tires. So for this, let's Shift A, click A, hold down Shift and A, then go add armatures, one bone. You can put it there. And for now, let's hide. Let's just move this and the bone like here. Let me put back some music. And we can go when you if you have the we can go to edit mode, to pose mode. Just select the armature and then go to pose mode. Select that and go to the bone constraints or armature constraints. And what we want to add is something called the transformation, the transformation transformation constraint. What this does and what is going to help us, what it will help us do, is that if we select this base mesh as our target object, it will basically, when we move, it will copy the information, the animation information for this mesh and apply it to the armature. So let's go to this and see what we need to do. So let's see location. So you can see if we select the bone, we have it's mapping the location of this object to the location of the armature, and we can also map the rotation, the rotation to the rotation, the scale to the scale, or we can map location to rotation or location to scale. And you can see, let's see if we can see it disappeared. So let's find it. Is it here? So we need to first set a minimum and a maximum value for this. So if we set, let's say 1 and a -1, -1, let's see. So we want to map the location of this mesh to the location of this armature. So if it's not working, you can try checking interpolation, and let's see if that would work. Let's see. Oh, we need to also set the distance. So when we move this mesh, what distance should this be moved? So let's try 1, a minimum distance of 1 and 5. Let's try 0.5 and 0.3, -0.5, and just to let's see. You can see now, whenever we move this object in the X direction, that transformation will be extrapolated to this, or will be copied to this armature we have, but in the opposite direction, because we have this negative in the minimum and negative in the. So if we change this to 0.5, -0.5, so it will just simply copy the transformation for this in the X direction, because we are mapping this location to the X direction, as you see here. It will, if we set this to the Y, let's make sure that let's see to the Y, let's see -1. Yeah, you can see to the Y, let's see -1. Yeah, we also need to set, and we don't actually, let's see, we also need to set the position for this here. So 1 by -1, and you can see we have that. But what we want to map to is the rotation. So we want to convert the position of this object and convert it to the rotation of this object. And so what we should do, we can first delete this so that we reset everything, and then again add the transformation constraint. Target, pick this as the target object, and so the source we want to target is the location, and the destination is the rotation. So we want to map the location of this object to the rotation of this object, and the axis we want to lock to, or the axis we want to lock to the x. The x. Make sure you are in the local view, not the global view, because that switches around sometimes. So the x, the y direction. We want to map when this car moves forward or backwards. We want it to that transformation to be converted into the x rotation of this armature. That's why you see we have selected this as the target, the cube, and whenever it moves in the x by 1 point, or in the negative direction of x by a negative point, we want to map that to the x rotation. Make sure you have extrapolate on. So to negative 360 by 360 in the positive. So let's see if it works. Okay, so it seems we have mapped it to the wrong direction, but let's see how to fix that. You can see, but you see it's working. So whenever we move this in the x axis, we are getting a rotation of this armature in the x axis. So let's see what we did wrong to fix that. Okay, so we mapped the x direction of this instead of the y direction. So let's switch that around. So one. So whenever we move this 1 point in the x-axis, in the y-axis, we convert that to a rotation of 360 and a negative rotation of 360 if we are moving that in the back direction. So let's see. Okay, so I think we need to also do. Let's try what? No, I don't think this is the problem. Let's see, negative here and 1 there. So negative 360. Let's see what direction is this. Global, local. Let's try local space. Sometimes you need to experiment a bit to see what should be working. Let's see. Let's first add a value for everything here and see. So that would do that, but we want it in the other direction. What about local space for this? So it's still locked to the x-axis instead of the y-axis. So let's see. If we map to x, map to y. Let's see. Let's map this to y and see. Let's keep it there. World. Not sure why this is just locked to that direction. So let's try global and see. So this is the Y, this is the X, and when we move this in the X, this works, but when we move this in the Y, it doesn't. Let's see. Negative 360. I think we need to change something. Let's try X, Y. And X, Y, local space, still locked in this direction. Negative 360. 360. The source axis constrained object. Let's try. Let's look at this other rig, because I'm really confused why that is not working, and I don't have time to experiment that much. So let's see. So for this it was mapped in the local space, Why? I think it's in the source mapping that we are getting wrong. We are getting it wrong. So let's see. So if this is Y and Y, yeah. The naming here is not really direct, and sometimes it can be very confusing. So let's go back to this rig and see. So this is 0, this is 0, this. I'm trying to match it exactly as it is. And let's see, Y negative 1. So we are getting some movement now. Yeah, so even when you do this over and over, it can still confuse you, because you just look at the naming here. It's not really direct. So let's see. Let's try X and Y and see. So we are getting, let's try world and world. So we're getting that now, but this, if we, let's try pause. Let's try local. So local gives us that, Let's try local and local. I'm still giving us that direction. Let's try local with world. We get in that local with local space. Okay, we saw that. Let's just remove this and see. Let's try Y. Know what I will do? I'll just animate this a bit so that it's easier to debug, then play while I play around with these settings. So if we change that to X, Y, and Z, change this to location, world to pause. Okay, so we are getting what we need, but the rotation is a bit off. World to pause, world to local, world apply A. So what about if we rotate? Now let's first clear this. Clear rotation. Okay. I think that happened because we cleared the rotation. So let's try again. Pause, local, and let's try world. Let's try Y, X, Y, Z. Local with parent, world, local. Let's see if we just rotate this. And change this to world, local space, pause. Okay, so maybe let's see how is it going. That direction. What about if we go into pause mode, rotate this 90 degrees. Rotate this 90 degrees. Okay, so I don't know, I must have messed up something here. So let me first delete this armature and let's try again. So I will add a single bond, make sure I don't rotate anything. And again, go to armatures, bond constraints, make sure you are in pause mode. When bond constraints, transform, select this object as the target object. Now it's animated, so we can come in. So we want to map, let's first turn on extrapolate. We want to map the location of this to the rotation of this object. And we want to map the local position. Let's see, global, or should we use, I think so the same. So if we map the global position, so which is the world position, to the world position of to the rotation of this object, but maintaining the so we want to map, let's see, the y-axis. So 1 by -1, and we want it to affect the, let's see, we have global, we have local, we have global. Let's first try global. 360 by -360. It's not doing much. 360 by -360. Let's remove that and see. What about if we, okay, so I think we can use this to change the direction, and let's see, so that gives us that. Okay, so we can just use this to change the direction to what we want, and I think that's exactly what we want. So now that we have figured that out, we can come to this object. You can parent this armature to this plane, to our template, and we can move this to the car we want, to the rig, to the object we want to rig. So move this to there, and just make sure it's aligned, the bone is aligned to the center of the wheel. So you can just get 3D cursor to selected, and then selected to 3D cursor, and we can do this. We can then go to edit mode. Let's see, can we go to edit mode, Shift D to duplicate that armature, and we will have two bones now that have the same constraints. And remember, we still have this animation on this, so we can just delete that for now. So let's go to, we can go to dope sheet and delete all the keyframes that are there. Come back to the timeline, make sure these are centered like that, and this is there like so, so that when we move it, it moves. And now we can just parent this wheel to this armature, Control P, to bone. So when we move this, the wheel follows that armature. So again, we come this side, Shift P, Control Object. Now make sure this is the one parented to the bone. So you see, and we can parent this to this template. I see we have that, but I think the wheels are spinning too fast. It's like they're sliding on the ground. So we can come to this armature and reduce the angle. Let's say for every 1 unit, instead of spinning the wheel 360 degrees, it can spin it, let's try divide by 4, 90 degrees, and also divide by 4 here, 90 degrees, and you can see now it's much slower, but the other one is fast. It's still spinning fast, so we need to come to it and do the same, divide by 4, then divide by 4. And basically what we did, if to recap, you just create a template of the car just to use it as a reference point when you are animating, and then add a few armatures there, create bonds. Let's just do it here so that you can see. So you just make sure you're not in pause mode, just create a single bond like that, then go to the constraints, add bond constraints, and make sure you are in pause mode so that you have this active, otherwise it won't be. So, and then go to the transform constraint. This will allow you to map the transformation properties of this object to the selected bond. So we can select this as the target object, and so we can copy the transform properties of this object to this object. And so we can map, for this to work, you need to set to check this extrapolate box, and so we can map this location, the location of this object to either the location or rotation or the scale. So if we created a simple animation here, so it can start from there and there, and play it back like that. We can come in and start experimenting with the different settings here. So we want to map the rotation, the location to the location. So we can say every unit in the positive direction, and every unit in the negative direction. This armature can maybe move two units. Let's see, -2. Then now you need to play around with these settings to see what settings works for the different setups you have. Let's see, let's try 1, -1, and you can see, so every unit this object moves in the y direction. This armature will move 2 units. So you can also, instead of using location, you can change it to rotation. And so this is 360 by -360. And basically that's what we have. And if you have a rotation that is not the direction you want, you can also use these other settings you have here to change to the direction you want. I think that's what I forgot last time. So, and that's what we have. That's what we have, and it's what we did. So we can delete this. And let's pause. Then duplicate these. You need to be in edit mode, so Shift D. Then make sure you don't have keyframes turned on, keyframe recording turned on. So delete keyframes, and then Shift D to duplicate this again. Now you just need to parent the tires to the object. We just need we also need to make sure that the objects, the armatures are in the center of the tires, somewhere around like that. And we can apparent the tires to now the bonds directly. So Control P, bond, select this to this, Control P, bond, this to this, Control P. And so now we can come in and animate and move our rig. If it seems like it's still sliding, you just come back here and reduce the rotation for all the bonds you have. So, and if you want to control these so that the front tires so that they can rotate around, you can create something like this. just to show you where do something like this. Maybe come to the object properties and turn it to wireframe mode. Can have something like this, and offset is pivot point around there, so that when you rotate it you have something like this. And go to the armatures and add another constraint, that is copy rotation, and select this object as the rotation object, as the object. And right now it's overriding the rotations that are being applied by moving this object. So we can come to this armature and in the bone constraints select what direction we want. So we want only, I think, the Z axis. I think, is it the Z axis? So let's see. Which axis do we want? We want this to affect only. So let's try local and local. We want this to only affect one direction, so world to local. You see, every time you do a rig, you have to rethink everything. So because because every rig is different, and you have to experiment differently to get the right configuration to get things to work. That's why you see I'm still experimenting, even if I have done this a few times. So we have that. So this was mapping to the Y direction, I think. Oh, I think this is controlling that. So let's first apply location and scale for this. Okay, if we shut this off, we have that there. So we need to first correct that, and it was corrected by adding, I think, this offset here. So let's see. So let's change this to -90 by 90, so that we reverse the direction. And now we can add the copy rotation. And we only need, I think, the Z. Let's see. The X, no. The Z. Now let's try Z. Yeah, I think it's the Z. So we can just rotate this 90 degrees and then go to edit mode, just so that we don't waste a lot of time, and rotate this back 90 degrees, and then we can use that as that, like that. So to make this easy, we can just come here, delete this armature, delete, and maybe this as well. Then duplicate this, bring it back here. You can see everything should work fine. Seems there is some snapping there. But basically, that's how you rig. Every model is going to be very different, and every rig you work on is going to be different. So you need to just experiment with what you're doing to work out the right configuration of what you're doing. Yeah, thank you for watching.